people are looking to make a connection with whoever they're doing business with. And I mean, we sell insurance. It's like the most boring thing ever. Like how can you make this attractive, right? At least that's how it's perceived. It's a bill they hate to pay.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Lindsay. It is a beautiful day. I'm at home, which is unusual, and we're going to our favorite restaurant tonight, so I'm pretty excited. How are things going with you, Linz?
They're going really good. Coming off a good week. I'm excited for some R&R this weekend, but I'm super excited that we have a good friend on the podcast today. We have the treat of interviewing Ciara Gravier. Is it Graver or Griever?
Gravier.
Gravier. Sorry. Okay. Gravier. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I feel like I've done one podcast with a woman, with Teresa Kitchens, and that's it. So this is a big deal that I'm, two women are interviewing me. I feel like this is good. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you for sure. I don't know if we're a Teresa Kitchens, but we will do our best to live up to that name. Holy
Isn't she
moly.
great?
I love her.
Isn't she amazing?
Yeah.
I love her. I love her so much. She brings so much to our industry. She radiates so much joy. She's great.
It's super ironic. I was literally just on the phone with Teresa. I mean, I'm not even kidding you. I literally just spoke with her, and we are going to do a happy hour. So I could not agree more. And I love that we have some incredible females in this industry. So anyway, I'm super, super excited to have you on, Ciara. I've loved getting to know you this year. I love that you put yourself out there. I especially love watching you on stage. Like, I got to tell you, man, your energy is something else. And I absolutely love watching you present the things that you're super, super passionate about.
Thank you. It's I sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm saying yes to the opportunities that I'm presented with because I feel a responsibility to do so, but it is major out of my comfort zone to do that. And I'm just forcing myself to do more of it. And I got to try it, right? Like I'll never know. So, and it's funny, I saw a clip on Instagram last week actually, and I saved it because it's the first time I had heard it, and it made me feel better about like the way I'm approaching these things. And it was actually Mel Robbins, and she had said that at the heart of confidence is just trying something. And I said, oh, well, I guess then that makes me feel better. Then I guess I do have some confidence because I guess I'm not afraid of publicly failing. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I got to try it once and I'm not going to die. Right. So, and this industry is so forgiving too. Like it's the best audience, everyone is so encouraging, so forgiving. So the reception is amazing. So it's also just like, I think that we're fortunate to be surrounded by such people that, appreciate that and they know the effort that it takes. It really is, Cass says it all the time. It's his trademark, right? It's the greatest industry God has created. And I feel the same.
Yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I mean, honestly, and everyone has something to bring. Therefore, you don't have to be a cookie cutter of something else. You're allowed to be uniquely you. And I definitely know that you do that for sure, without question.
It's been a journey, and I'm honored as well. We met at the One City World Tour, and we immediately I couldn't stop hugging you. I was like, I feel like I've known you forever. Yeah,
oh, that's awesome. Well, the first time I learned who you were, Ciara, was I listened to the podcast you did with Scott and Bradley on the Insurance Guys, and I just thought that I was so impressed of what your message was and how well you communicated it, because it's a hard thing to, in this industry, stand up and say last name insurance agency is a thing of the past. Like there's so many agencies that are named that, and you speak so eloquently about it and you make such a good argument. And I know that there are other counter arguments out there that they are super strong. You know, some people say, well, this is a family business and that's part of our value. You know,
Sure.
some people say that, and some people say that having last name associated with your agency can bring a good sense of familiarity and trust, especially in small town USA, which is something that I'm not even immune to, having my mom being my mom. Sometimes I'll, you know, hi, I'm Lindsay Wallace. Oh, Wallace, do you know Carrie Wallace? Oh yeah, actually she's, you know, like it happens to me too, even sometimes. But I think that there's a balance in the branding messaging, especially from your message that you say, between maintaining a personal touch. Um, and oftentimes we achieve that by using a last name and using kind of modern branding strategies that achieve that broader goal, is what you know, kind of what I'm thinking. How do you do that in your agency, to like tell the listeners what your agency's name is and how you've achieved that for your agency?
So everything that you said, I agree with. So my agency is the Bunker Insurance and Risk Management, right? And we've owned Last Name Insurance Agency in the past. And my argument to Last Name Insurance Agency is that people choose it because they don't know what else to choose. So it's easy. It's not necessarily intentional. And it's intentional because it's easy, not because it's a creative or because they have this like ideal of what this brand is going to. No, they don't map it out, right? Now there are some people that are blessed with last names. For example, Kilgo, amazing, right? What a great last name. And even the way his logo is done, right, where it's like the go is kind of on the go,
Oh yeah.
like genius, use it, right? Even Jeremy Powers, right? Powers insurance expert, but his website is choosepie.com. That's amazing,
Yeah.
right? Like if you have a really good last name that you can lean into and build a brand around it, do it. The majority of us do not, right? I mean, Gravier, we had a Gravier insurance group, like, and it meant nothing to anybody, not even to us, right? We did it because we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to name a business. My parents had worked for corporate America all of their life. They didn't have this master plan. And especially not back then when branding was completely an afterthought, and identity, the thought of making an identity and having to tell a story would never even cross their mind because they didn't know what they were doing. So I think that if we did a poll on all the last name insurance agencies, it's more because of that. Some of it is family pride, right? Which is fine. But if you live in an area where you need the recognition so that way you're not perceived to be like an out of state company or a venture capitalist, where people still value that relationship, great. Where I am sitting right now doing this, where our office is, there's an Allstate office that's ginormous right in front of me. The building over there's a State Farm agency. In my grocery shopping plaza, which I'm right next to, there's two insurance agencies
Oh my.
right here I could walk this. I actually do on my lunch hour to get some my steps in, right? Like I pass 5 insurance agencies on my lunchtime walk, right? Now, all of them have some variation of, obviously Allstate, State Farm has that their sign on the door, but it's all last name. There's no differentiator to anyone here on who's who. How do we stand out? How does anybody stand out when in just these 2 blocks of where my office is located, there's 5 insurance agencies. And unless I had a last name like Kilgo, like, Choose Pie, like that's so good. Things like that are so good. I don't know, I wouldn't know how else to build a story around it. So we learned that with our Gravier Insurance Group. Obviously, we were Allstate, but our declarations pages said Gravier Insurance Group. It was Allstate, but Gravier Insurance Group. And when we opened our independent and we finally said, okay, well, let's do something, we made the mistake again. We were new on the independent side, so we didn't want to appear new. So we tried to play off of some other entity's name, right? We Countrywide Insurance. We weren't countrywide. We only wrote in Florida. So it didn't make any sense at all. It's pretty embarrassing, honestly. It's really embarrassing because it was an afterthought. It was an afterthought. No, we didn't. We're just like, well, we're good at insurance. So doesn't matter what our name is, right? Like we're good insurance agents. So that's really the main reason for the bunker. Like I knew that we were going to get it right if we had to do it again. And I knew that I wanted something that was catchy and short. Uber was my inspiration, just a one worded thing. And if I kind of, now that I've been telling the story, I think even our logo is a little bit Uberish, right? Like it's just like, it's just bold. I think it's impactful. I think it's memorable. So I mean, obviously, I did it. So,
hey guys, if you're looking to improve your bottom line, allow your team to operate efficiently, and really improve that customer retention, I believe you should check out Ascend. Ascend is the all-in-one insurance payment solution. They are focused on streamlining your invoicing, premium financing, accounting, and they'll even make your carrier payables for you. They are taking agency bill and making it as easy as direct bill. That is a game changer. They integrate with all of the major AMS players, and here's the best part. It's free. There is no subscription, no cost to you. They allow your customers to pay how they want. If you are interested in improving your efficiency, go visit ascend.com/insurance refocused and let them know that we sent you. Well, before we move into the bunker, I just want to tell you a story because, listen, I think it's something crazy like 76% of independent insurance agencies are family owned, number one, right? Mm-hmm. And there are a ton of agencies that have last names, no question about it. Do you know that when someone reaches out to me and they want a valuation, I used to have a form on my website that said, what is your name? What is your agency's name? And what is the thing you'd like to talk about? And they would then leave their email address. I forgot to put on the form, give me your website. So they would book time with me. We'd have a great conversation and they'd say, yes, I'd like to get a valuation. I said, no problem. I'll send you a proposal. So the person, I have a VA who does all of my proposals, and I would always Google them, find their website so I could make sure that it's the right one. If I didn't ask for that website, do you know how many I had to call them back? Because there's no photo on the website. There's no, there are 3,000 Jones Insurance. There's probably 22 Wallace Insurances across the country, and it can be in any state, in any place. And I can't tell that from your email address, your name, your agency name. And I learned really quick, give me your website, and otherwise I could easily send the proposal to the wrong person. And it should never be that way. I mean, honestly, if it's Tom at Smith Insurance, do you know how likely it is that there's multiple Toms at Smith Insurance across the country? I'm in 49 states at this point. So it's hilarious. So you saying, can we stand out? The answer is, I think part of this is we used to think of ourselves as the insurance agency that only serves your 3 surrounding counties. Many agencies are across the country, and they actually bump into each other because the names are confusing because there's so many of the same common last name. It's just super interesting,
I think that that's kind of the point of why I'm saying what I'm saying and why my message is the way it is, because it's like, if you are last name insurance agency and you've been that, I mean, I said it when I spoke at Agency Success, if you have been that, that's great. And you're a pillar in your community. I'm not telling you to change it. Actually, you could do a powered by program, which is basically what my presentation was about there. It's like, here, you're a pillar in your community, leave it alone. Don't change it, right? That's a PR nightmare if it's not handled correctly. But you can create an extension or something that's more modern to play on the national scale if you wanted to do, a niche market, right? The reality of it is that those, especially if you're in the commercial space, when you are last name insurance agency, the big box agencies, the alphabet houses use the fact that you are a last name insurance agency as a weakness against you. Like, you don't belong in this space because you can't handle it. You don't have the resources just by your name. So I think that if someone is going to start an agency now in 2023, I don't think that that is the way to go. If you are a pillar in your community and you've done it and you've done it well for 90 years, don't touch it. Like, that's fine.
So let me ask you a question, because obviously, my bend on everything is it adding value? Is it getting you where you go? What do you think the impact of the name that you choose has on an agency's value?
It's funny because I was going to ask you, what do you think it does to the valuation? So I think our answer is going to be the same, because I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Because when you, it's the Joe Plumbing story, right? Joe, the plumber, opens Joe Plumbing, but he is the plumber. So can he sell that plumbing business when he leaves or when he wants to retire? Maybe,
He
but
can, but he might have attrition.
exactly. Because people only want to deal with Joe. And I feel like there's a difference, right? When you're Joe Plumbing and you are Joe the plumber, you're self-employed. You're not running a business. So my perception of it from the outside, and I would like to build the bunker. Obviously, I'm the face of it now, and maybe as I scale and I grow, I'll always do the face of it. Like Hanley does with Rogue, right? Like he does all the videos and all the content and all that stuff, and people associate that with him. But Rogue Risk is running on its own, right? He's not processing endorsements, right? So now if we could remove him, or if my goal with the bunker is to build it to someday be able to have it run on its own, and then I can sell it one day. I think that it being tied to my last name, it would it would not add that much value. I think if I can sell this agency with a marketing book of, hey, here's how you can continue to run the bunker with its own identity, and this is the identity that I've built and the story that I've built that really is not revolved around Ciara. The story is revolved around moving your business from danger to a safe place. You get to live inside of the bunker while we protect your business. I mean, it could be me or it could be you doing that, right? Like, that's my goal. And I think that that would allow me to get top dollar because it also has its own identity.
If you're like me and many other small businesses across the country where hiring, training, and retaining employees is a challenge, Agency VA has a solution for you. Agency VA has over 1,000 VAs hired, managed, and trained in the Philippines, Latin America, and India. But did you also know they have 100 licensed agents here in the US that can help you manage your book? I use a VA who lives in the Philippines, and I absolutely love her. The process was simple. We had a consultation where they asked me my needs, goals, and concerns, and matched me with Allie, who has been an absolute game changer for me. Employing Allie through Agency VA has allowed me to focus on my business without worrying about HR concerns, turnover, and monitoring payroll. The best part is the Agency VA team was eager to help my company and also make sure that Allie is getting employee benefits, a competitive salary to help her live a better life in the Philippines. If this is something that you are struggling with inside your agency, please visit agencyva.com/insurance refocused and set up a time to talk to them about your hiring needs. So it's really funny that you say that because, here's the thing. You could build a business, but if it is, and this goes for any industry, if you build a business and it is 100% dependent on you, you will diminish the value of that business because you're not going to live forever. You're just not. So when I started my business, it was not something that was like totally thought out. It was not like, you know what? It's on my bucket list. By the time I'm 50, I'm going to own my own business. That is not how that happened. It happened for a multitude of reasons, and honestly, a couple people pushed me to do it. And so I reached out to some close friends and said, oh my gosh, I actually have to speak. And I don't want to give an email address that's carrie.wallace@gmail.com. I don't want to do that. That's not professional. So what am I going to do? And I actually had a few people that said, just name it Carrie Wallace Consulting. What's the matter with you? And my first logo actually had my name in there because they were like, you have some name recognition in what you do. And I agree. I had some, but I quickly took my name out of my logo because if I really want my business to have value, it has to transcend me. And the reality is, that takes time. people trust people, but you're exacerbating it by making the name of your business also you. So there's an easier way to build my team and say, you know what? Colby on their team is also very talented. So is Lauren. So is Allie. It's not the Carey Wallace show. It's actually a whole team of people that make this happen. Ryan Hanley's a very talented gentleman, but he is not the only person at Rogue Risk. Ciara is an incredibly talented person. That is not the bunker, full stop. So I agree with you 1,000%. Our answer would be, I think you're maximizing the opportunity for a retention issue when you have a transition, and you can minimize that. And the name is part of it. The other part is expanding those relationships. Listen, you could have whatever name you want, but if Ciara holds all the relationships and goes to transition, she's going to have the same problem. The name's not going to solve it. I just think the name adds another layer to, to that risk inside your business without question.
I also would, two other things. I think that attracting talent is hard. Like, if the fact that they're working for an entity that is called the Bunker, we've got this story, it looks great on swag, like it has its own life of its own, right? Versus Gravier Insurance Group. Like, who's going to wear a polo that says great? That's not their last name, right? They're not the family member, right? Maybe if it was my brother, myself, you know what I mean? Like, it's someone that's not in my family. What's the pride in wearing someone else's last name? I don't know that people have that.
It's super hilarious that you say that, because I got to the end of the first year of being in business and I went to send out a thank you to my clients. And my name, Carey Wallace, is literally in the logo. And I couldn't think of one thing that I wanted to send that had Carey Wallace in it. Like, oh my goodness, what did I do? So I changed my logo. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I was like, oh no, like, or I just removed it off of, I think at that point I just removed my name and sent like something that had it. And since then I've realized you don't use your own logo in the things you send anyway, but I'm learning. Listen, I'm learning, people.
But also I feel like, for example, Carey Wallace consulting for what?
I know. Doesn't say anything.
How would I have known? Agency focus. I know what you do.
Right.
Even being in the industry, like, it immediately creates a connection. So I already know that the day that I'm ready to sell, well, prior to many years before I'm ready to sell, I listen when you speak. It's like, it's automatically agency focused. No one else exists, right? Because of the connection. It makes sense. There is an emotional connection to the image that you were creating, and then you're all fabulous. So it follows through, right? Like, great, the bunker is great, but if we're not that great, then it also lies flat.
Yeah, you gotta actually be the thing behind it, of course. Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's also just the times have changed. I took a year off from when we sold. We sold in November 2018, our last independent, and I opened November 2019. I'm sorry, we sold September 2018. I opened November 2019. In 1 year, everything changed. Everything changed. The things that I am doing here, I have never done. I never did these things at my last two agencies. So I feel like there was a time where just being a great insurance agent was enough. And we are not living in those times anymore. You have to do things to stand out. You have to do things to be different. So the fact that you have a different name, if you go down this route and you're ahead of the curve 25% just by having a memorable name, that helps create a connection with people, and if they hear the name enough, it does some of the work for you, really, because it's challenging to start over, and it's challenging. The business world has changed so much. Like, I mean, I'm doing stuff that I never thought. My parents never did this stuff, and we had a great successful agency. We had 8 employees. Like, we were thriving, and they were hosting podcasts, making videos, speaking. They were just insurance agents that went to a BNI group, and that was enough. Yep. It's not enough anymore. It's not.
So for the people who are listening to this podcast thinking, oh my God, I have last name insurance agency and I wish I didn't, but I have no idea what I would name my agency, because some people aren't creative in that way. I've named a couple different things. I helped name this podcast. I helped name Agency Focus. I think I'm sure I did. I've named a couple things in my time, and it's hard. It is really hard. It's like you're up at 11:30 at night writing down random things that come to you before you're closing your eyes to go to sleep, like. So how did you, with Bunker, what factors did you consider? What was important to you? What did that process look like when you were
Yeah.
naming it?
So it is hard. We didn't get it right either on the first time. I knew I wanted something. I was not going to let go of the fact that I wanted to be one worded. Like the doesn't count, right? I guess it's technically, and it's a longer name, but we just say the bunker. Like if you call my office, we say the bunker. We don't say the whole name. Um, I knew I wanted something short, modern, and catchy. And I knew that I wanted someone to feel something when they heard it. So so we had Gravier Insurance Group with Allstate, and then we had CWI Underwriters, which meant absolutely nothing. It was atrocious, the name. It didn't mean anything. And we actually went through a rebrand, and we just couldn't connect the circle. We couldn't tell a story that wasn't family owned, been in business 12 years or whatever, prior experience. Like we couldn't do anything outside of that because there was nothing to stack on it, right? We couldn't build a story because there was nothing to tell. So I knew I didn't want that to happen to me again. So catchy, I knew I wanted something modern, and I wanted them to feel something. So honestly, my dad came up with the name. It wasn't even me. But we would have these conversations, and we actually came up with the Bunker Risk Shelter initially. And it didn't land. We thought it was great. And I guess because everyone around us is kind of has insurance brain, everyone thought it was great too. Like they were like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like the bunker protection." Yeah. But maybe we didn't do a good job explaining it, but people thought we were an animal shelter. And like we would get phone calls for people dropping off like, "Hey, we found a cat. Can we bring the cat?" And I was like, "Maybe if it's a puppy, but not a cat."
Well, and
We're
you're in
dog people
Florida.
here.
You're in Florida, so there's not bunkers in Florida. Like that
No,
would have been
exactly.
what I would thought. Like
Yeah,
a hurricane came out, you would be like
right.
bunker, like what? So
Yeah.
it's so hard. There's so many different variables that
There's so
come
many ways.
when you're
Yeah,
naming
there's so
something.
many
It's
ways it can
crazy.
go. Yeah. So I knew I wanted them. So we actually were Googling names like synonyms to protection. We wanted them to feel safety. So I knew I wanted to do that, and I knew that I wanted to build an agency that was heavy commercial, barely no personal lines, which I don't do any personal lines now. I knew that I wanted to build. I had just gotten my CRM, and I love the CRM designation. It's absolutely my favorite. It opened my eyes to the other side, right? Us insurance professionals think we solve all the problems, and we're really just a piece of running a business, right? So much. I'm fascinated by the risk management side. So I kind of knew that I wanted to do something like that, something that was kind of boutique, maybe, but also we're consultants, we're professionals, we're risk managers. So that kind of fit, right? So my suggestion would be if someone's thinking of starting, right? If you already have an established name, I actually would tell you to tread lightly with rebranding completely. I think that you would have to have a really strong team to help you, especially with the PR of it. Um, but there's things that you can do to judge what you currently have, right? You can change some of your colors. You can maybe just get a new logo. You can tell your story differently. Maybe it's not the name of your agency and you just haven't told your story in a fascinating way or in a way that can connect with people, right? Um, I think that doing a complete overhaul of your brand should be your last resort for sure. Like, I don't think it's like, man, the bunker's so I've had people tell me, like, that's actually why I trademarked it. After now that I've been speaking and stuff, someone came up to me and they're like, it makes me so mad that I didn't think of that. Like, it's right in our faces. How did we not, like, how did everybody in this room not think about it? And I was like, I should probably trademark it just in case, because
You should.
yeah, I mean, that actually made me realize, like, oh, like, isn't that crazy? Like, I have it and I've done it and I'm speaking about it and I'm just like, yeah, it's the bunker. And I'm like, no, like, people see a lot of value in this. And I was like, let me protect it just in case, and I know that it happened to someone recently too, that they had to fight it. But I think I would start with also, what is it that you want to tell? What is it that you want to convey? Who are you trying to attract? Right? I knew, being a woman, younger, especially in ownership, I can't roll in with like pastels if I'm going after contractors. I just can't do that. Right. So I think that a lot of people make these mistakes, and that's why we land in last name insurance agency, because they're in a rush to open a business. They got the bug. We're going to open an agency. I'm going to do it. Last name insurance. My colors are these two. This is what it is. I would urge people to massage the idea more. And I know that if you're not creative, it's difficult. It's more difficult. It was difficult for me, and we got it wrong even here, and we had to change the name again. Um, but I think starting with the end in mind, right? Do you want to franchise it? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to pass it to your children as a legacy? Well, then maybe you do last name insurance agency, because it's your family. There's a connection there. There's so many avenues that I would tell people, try to define who do you want to be, and then how do you want people to perceive you, and then how do you get there? What is the story? You see, the story of the bunker is not about me being in this industry for 20 years and my parents opening up, my dad opening up an agency at 49, pulling money out of his 401k because he got laid off and he had had enough with corporate America. Like, I don't talk about that. I don't talk about my designations. That's not, those things, I don't feel like they add value to who the bunker is. You got to define that, because then people can't connect. People can't connect with you. And I think that that's the main difference in between the business world from what it was to what it is now. It's like people are looking to make a connection with whoever they're doing business with. And I mean, we sell insurance. It's like the most boring thing ever. Like, how can you make this attractive, right? At least that's how it's perceived. It's a bill they hate to pay.
How did finding a domain factor into your naming? Because that's been a big thing for me. We want to name it something, we look up the domain, it's been bought. Because you really only want the .com, right? You don't want the .ins or .net or whatever else you're going to do. Did that play a factor in your naming decision?
Actually, no, because all of ours were bought. So our domain is actually bunker your risk. So I'm kind of telling people, like, bunker your risk. That was my thought. That was literally my thought process of it. So it's like, so it's funny because, but you see, I think it backfired on me a little bit, honestly, because sometimes, especially prospects or like if I'm networking, people will be like, "Oh, this is Ciara from Bunker Your Risk," because they know me on Instagram.
Ah.
So I've noticed that even recently. Like, I mean, I didn't think that through. I mean, it's not the worst, but like, or people will send an email introduction for a referral, and it's like, "Oh, so and so, I want you to meet Ciara from Bunker Your Risk," because that's my email, Ciara at Bunker Your Risk. So that's kind of, I mean, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, we have that at Indium as well, because our name is Indium, but when you Google search Indium, obviously the element, like Indium, the element comes up first. And so our domain is Go Indium, and people often refer to us as Go Indium.
Yep,
And,
there you go.
I'm like, that's not our name, but you know what? You got there. So,
Right, right.
whatever.
But honestly, I feel like now it kind of helps me, because if someone introduces me as Bunker Your Risk, I'm like, oh, okay, they found me on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's on Instagram.
That's true.
Or,
That's true.
one of my social medias. So, but that was not intentional. That has happened by accident.
Yeah. So, Ciara, I think that I think we covered the name. I guess my question for you is, what you said a couple of times, from the agency you had to the agency you have now, you're doing different things. Do you think that there are certain things that every agency should be doing right now that the average agency isn't? Naming is one, creating a brand and a feeling is something. And I'm going to divert for just 1 second, because I just came back from a mastermind that literally blew my mind. Like, they straight up blew my mind. It opened with a speaker that challenged us to think about, what do you actually sell? This person worked at Disney, And the question he posed to everyone, which fits with who are you and who are you trying to attract and what are you trying to do? And so, for him, I'll ask you, what do you think Disney sells?
Memories.
Sure. What emotion do you think Disney sells?
Happiness.
Correct. So he basically said that he said that in a way that made everyone cry, first of all. So let's just go there.
Sure.
But then we all left thinking, wait a minute, what do we sell? Like, as an independent insurance agents, what do we sell? And I think you contemplated this. You may not have asked yourself that specific question, but you just said it. I sell safety. I sell like security. I sell when the things are going really bad, we are going to make your risk go away. We are absolutely right. I mean, you said it beautifully. So what other things do you think agency owners should be doing to modernize and get into the next the next generation, the next 2 generations? Tell me what that looks like for you.
That's a great question. And I think that one of the things that kind of ties into Lindsay's question of as far as like if someone's thinking about rebranding, like what can they do? And I think can be done for both. And it's like using a process, right? Because if your last name insurance agency, but you've kind of phased talking about being family owned and, in the community for X amount of years out, and that's not your main message anymore, but you can talk about how you do business differently. I think new people would be attracted to that idea. That would be a good way to even cross sell to your current book of like, hey, listen, we've created this new process to make sure that, you're up to date or that there's no gaps. Like, let's have a call. Let's have a remarketing call or a cross selling call, whatever your agency calls it. And that should have a name. The fact that I don't even know what to call it, right? Like that should have a name. Mine's the Bunker Edge. That allows you to detach yourself and you're selling this idea and the process is what becomes a connection with your audience or with your prospect or with your client, right? I think that I'm 40. I think my generation, I come from a generation that, at least myself, I'm willing to pay more for an experience, right? So even I would imagine if I would have been a consumer in the insurance world, I don't think I ever would have been the online do-it-yourself person. It's not my nature to be that way. But I definitely would have gone to a place where they made me feel like I was going through an experience. Like, I know that this is a commodity and you can do this all the time, but I would have probably called 2 or 3 agents, and the one that educated me on a process, on why they're different, asked me some really good questions, is probably where I would have been. So I think that, like agencies that fall into naming last name insurance agency, because it's almost like the path of least resistance. Okay, if you've already been there for 20 years, great, leave it alone. You're established. Why don't you create a process and give it an identity, and then do business differently than all the other last name insurance agencies in your community?
I mean, there's such an opportunity for that because there's a lot of friction. The fact that we are independent makes it a blessing and a curse. So that, saying this is what I do, I make it smooth and easy. I make it, whatever that is, frictionless. Like that would differentiate it. Your experience here is going to be different than what it is. And I hate to mention this, but I was a USAA customer for a very long time. I'm an Army brat.
You did a lot for your friends.
Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. I was an Army brat, and honestly, you know what USAA makes you think? They make you think you're elite. No one else can get this. Whether it's true or not, it might be elite and the most undercovered you've ever been, but it is elite, man. Like no one else can get in the club. So my point is, I think
Isn't that crazy that even in insurance companies, something so commoditized like insurance can convey almost a pack mentality of being elite? How? That is powerful.
You know why? Because that group of people feels connected. When you're part of a military and you move around, you know that group is being treated because they become family. And so they marketed to military families that feel connected and really like, they they capitalized on the fact that we already have that mentality as a group of people, right? It's crazy.
Right.
So,
and you're just talking to a customer service rep.
I know. And the reality is, once I changed my insurance, I was literally probably the most underinsured person you've ever met in your entire life. But I felt elite. You know, they said, thank you so much for being a customer for X number of years. That's how they answered the phone. I mean, I tell a story about why I value my independent agent, because they know me as a person and not as number. But yet I still thought USAA, no one else can get it, so it must be the best thing I could ever get. Isn't that crazy?
That is the perfect example of a connection that you hope to build, that we would hope to build, right? With through an experience, and then it's not even actually the experience; it's your perceived experience.
That's right.
Because you were underinsured.
I was.
So they weren't even good at their job.
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious. Well, I can tell you this, Ciara, we could talk to you all day long.
Same.
And I love how passionate you are about this. But the beauty is, we're in an industry that there's no set way to do things. I think you just need to challenge yourself and think about it and be intentional. And if you do that, I think that we're gonna win all day long. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your views on this.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure agents across the country are gonna be like, I need to rethink this. What experience am I giving? What is the impression?
Don't get mad at me.
What's that?
I said, don't get mad at me if your last name is Jersey. I love everyone and I love you, and just do things a little different. That's it. That's the message. I didn't intend. It's funny. I've gotten a little bit of heat for it, and I'm always just like, listen, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. Like, it's a legacy. I get it.
Here's the thing, though. If we don't challenge each other's thinking, we're not going to be here. And that's not okay either, right? So tell me, if someone wants to reach out to you and talk about this further, or find out what your process is, or dig in any deeper, how can they find you?
Yep. So I'm on Instagram at Bunker Your Risk. My website is the same, Bunker Your Risk. My email is Ciara at Bunker Your Risk. LinkedIn, Ciara Gravier, Facebook. I'm everywhere. You guys can reach me, and I always love to help. I think that even though I'm new to this speaking thing, I think I am really energized by helping people. And I think that, I know that the majority of the industry is not creative. So it's even more of it's already challenging even for creative people to design this. So I know that, a lot of questions or a lot of brainstorming happens. And so sometimes they need someone to bounce it off, and I love to do it. So I'm here to help.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Ciara. It means the world to us.
Thank you both. And it's been a pleasure to meet you both this year. And I look forward to hopefully spending more time together in person.
All right. You have a great day, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.